Come on in. The water's nice, soothing. I'm going to do a podcast tonight, now, 6 p.m., April 29th, I think, 30th. Hi, Kathy. Good evening. Hello, Rachel. So, some of you may recognize that, Paco Bell's Canyon. Joan, no, babe. I ain't even trying. That's gone. That ended with the message, outrage is the same as rage. There was no further exchange, but thank you for thinking so. All right. So it's Friday. It's now 6:02. By the way, in response somewhat to Joan, Paco Bell Cannon is one of my favorite pieces ever. I can't believe that he never gained any notoriety for anything else. The most played song at weddings. Well, that kind of ruins that for me. That may be the end of me ever podcasting Paco Bell. I didn't know that. I thought the wedding song with Paul Stuckey was the most played song, but doesn't really matter. So I also like Adagio by Albanini or Albanani. So welcome to the podcast. I have another piece of music I think will not get me thrown off of anywhere in the world on Facebook because I don't know that it would be copyrighted. And I'm going to post a link to it here, should anybody be interested. But I don't want you to stop what you're doing because first 2 minutes is just talk. It's got nothing. It's a prelude to the song and relevant, but I'd prefer to just play you. I've posted this on Facebook before. Just in the mood, man. 10-year-old autistic and blind boy.
My heart, I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy.
So, yeah, Kathy, I mean, it's just so powerful. The voice of where it's coming from. Let me just say one thing to those of you that may be listening on YouTube. I'm talking to people on Facebook who are interacting with me, and you are welcome to interact with me too. If you're listening live, if you're not listening live, you post a comment, I'll get it later. Same thing with Facebook. So, if you look at that boy, and you hear the story that his father introduces in the first 2 minutes. I don't believe in God, but I believe this. I believe if there's a God, that he made that boy his messenger. You know, I don't have to believe in God to believe that that's a real possibility, even a probability that that young lad was in fact intended as a messenger of God. And I don't know where he is today, but uh, bless that boy. You know what I mean? And so let us get on with this nightly podcast. Um, Today, like I said, it's April 30th. It's time to begin the weekend. And so I posted that everybody's working for the weekend, except me. Maybe not you, but in case you needed it, I posted the song, in case you wanted to work it, Loverboy, and then Take on Me, and then an oldie but goldie. I encourage you to take a listen after the podcast to Edie Gourmet singing Blame It on the Bossa Nova. And then I included Pachelbel. So, anyways, hi, Chris. So here we are getting ready for the weekend in the time of the pandemic. And the weekend used to have a little bit more, how would you say, substance to it. Friday night, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. And we all, at some point in time, maybe when we were teenagers and we were in school, or maybe when we were employed Monday through Friday, at some point, the weekend was something to look forward to. Didn't have to get up in the morning and go to class. Didn't have to get up in the morning and go to work. Didn't have to get up in the morning, whatever. Now, for me, the weekend for years, Saturday has been up before dawn, out on the road on my bicycle before dawn. And I mean, I'm out of my garage usually about 5 a.m. or 5:15 a.m. and it's dark until about 6:30 or so. I'm riding in the dark with a friend. So, the weekend doesn't carry the cachet that for me that it may carry for some, especially somebody who's a working stiff and, is looking forward. And of course, part of that was part of that work, looking for the weekend, working for the weekend was tying one on, maybe on a Friday night or a Saturday sometime. Tying it on, I mean partying, getting messed up and, just blowing it out your ears because you felt like, oh, look, I worked so hard. So, and for me, sometimes by Monday, when I was a older teenager, my check would be pretty much spent on my girlfriend, on getting high, and just stuff. I didn't spend money during the week, really, frankly. Had a tank of gas, back and forth to work, went home, watched TV, and then Friday, Saturday, and part of Sunday, I was doing what I could to enjoy myself, right? So here I am. I'm 68 years old. Weekend don't mean a dang thing to me, except it means something. The following. One, it means that if the weather was right and it doesn't look right for tomorrow, I would get in a good hard ride with a friend of mine. And I like the interaction. Chris knows what I'm talking about. You ride for a few hours with somebody, you're not always talking because riding and talking don't always go together. Um, uh, so sometimes you're riding single file, but there's times when you ride side by side, you chit chat. I mean, it's like hiking. You don't always talk when you're hiking because sometimes you can barely breathe when you're going uphill. But at other times, always when you're hiking, there will be conversation, and it's a sharing and caring thing. So for me, Saturday morning has some significance today, and then of course relaxing, and then maybe doing something late afternoon or evening with somebody. But in the pandemic, no, usually just spent it, take a bath and watch TV, right? And then Sunday, I don't go to church, kids. Some of you do. So some of you, that's part of your weekend. It's not necessarily part of mine. But again, in the time of the pandemic, it's probable that at least for some period of time, you couldn't go to church, either because the church was shut down and was doing everything virtually, or because you could not, you were unwilling to come out and expose yourself to a church service. So the pandemic, right, has turned everything on its ass. Everything is out of kilter to some extent. To what extent? Everybody's different. I had lunch with my friend Ginny today. We went to Edith French restaurant. Je voudrais te présenter mon ami Ken, right? And as she pointed out, I have led a more risky life the past year than she has. She's been more cautious. I think I've been cautious, but I immediately had to acknowledge, yes, I ate inside restaurants a couple of times. She tried to never eat inside. Um, I went to some AA meetings in person a couple of weeks ago. That wouldn't be on her list of things to do, even though she's not in AA. I'm just saying. So, so I've lived a little larger than some and less large than a lot of people. People are anti-vaccine, anti-COVID, anti-democrat, anti-liberal, whatever, right? But I did my best. I participated to the best of my ability, like biking with Chris, or going to lunch with Ginny, walking with my friend Cynthia. My friend Paul never visits us here, but he's the one I bicycle on Saturdays with. So I was partially integrated into society. But my point is that the pandemic changed life's paradigm. It changed it inevitably, it changed it for everybody. So even people who are anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-virus, whatever they're anti, they still at some point were had to put on a mask to go get groceries. They had to stay home from church because church was virtual only. Um, maybe their job told them, we don't want you here. You either work from home or you don't work at all. You've been laid off. Whatever it is, everybody was affected. And let's pretend that you decide you were not going to be affected. You were going to live life as though it never happened. The fact of the matter is, unless you lived in a very like survivalist community or something, your friends were living in the pandemic. And so you still found that you didn't have the access to the world that you'd once had because, hell, everybody else was working with the pandemic. So, so now, everybody's working for the weekend. Yeah, it's probably not true. This group that listens to this podcast tends to trend older. Most of us aren't working for the weekend or for any other day. I mean, we're just not working. We are retired, either voluntarily or involuntarily. So, enough of that. I want to tell you, yesterday, I was telling you a little bit about my day yesterday. I forgot to tell you, amongst a couple of things, this was important. I went to Handel's Ice Cream, which I've put ice cream on the internet when I visited Handel's. I take a little photograph. I'm on my bike ride. It's one of the photographs I will take on my bike ride, right? And I post it and say, oh, yeah, got me an Oreo cookie dough or whatever it was. So, man, I got a bug up my butt yesterday. So I went up to REI for something. Oh, to return some clothes. That's right. And I decided I'm halfway to Handles. Why don't I do it? It's not a nice day. I'm not going to go for a bike ride. It's getting late. So up to Handles I went. I get an ice cream and I sit down. I eat it outside. And then I'm thinking to myself, geez, dude, you should have just bought like a pint of ice cream. You got your van. You take it home. I'd already done grocery shopping, by the way. I had groceries in the car. So I'd been to Trader Joe's, which is next to REI, and I went to the chop shop and got a salad. So went back in the handles and I bought me some chocolate malt caramel ice cream. And I got a quart. I'm like, why get a pint, babe? Get a quart, right? Hand packed. All right, let's do this. I got home, unpacked everything. I did whatever. I sat down, I did a podcast. At some point, I went in the kitchen and I realized that that little white bag, unmarked bag, actually held my ice cream. And 3 hours later, it was melted, right? And I'm like, I'm distressed, So I drink a little of it. I put the rest in the refrigerator, and I've been eating it about every 3 hours. I have some refrozen ice cream. Okay, I'm not done with the food stories today. Okay, there's Velvet getting up in her perch. She loves to hear my food stories. I'll tell you why. Because she haunts me when I go in the kitchen thinking that uh, there's a possibility that if I'm eating, she'll get some leftovers, right? I've spoiled her a little bit and her little buddies. But more often than not, no, you can't have any. Anyways, I a friend of mine got two Lou Malnati's pizzas for his birthday in December. His mother in Chicago sent it to him. Now I've never been to Lou Malnati's for pizza. It's not a place I normally go to. I go when I'm in Chicago. I go to Gino's Easter Giordano's. But he said he liked it, and he and I have gone out for Gino's Pizza at least 20 times, if not more, in our lives together. So he liked it. You know what? So I look, well, two Malnati's pizzas, $35 a piece when you ship it. No, 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 no. I ain't paying $35 for a pizza. I don't care what's on it, right? Oh, 4-pack. Do the calculations. That's about 20 something dollars a piece. I'm like, yeah, yeah, no, no. A 6-pack is only 19.50 a pizza. Wow, boom shakalaka. So what do? I go ahead and I bought the 6-pack. I didn't want to. First, I tried to pre-sell some of them before they came, and nobody was buying. So I said, you know what? You only live once. I ordered the 6-pack. It's like $120. It came the other day. They're in the freezer. I didn't forget to put them in the freezer once they arrived. So I've got deep dish pizza. I got handmade ice cream. I'm living large. Pandemic or no pandemic, I'm gonna die happy if it's possible, right? So that I forgot to report on these events. I don't know when I'll have a deep dish pizza, frankly, because while I used to eat an entire deep dish pizza by myself, and that's the truth, I am no longer capable of that, and I don't know that, you know, if if I cook one and there's nobody around, I'm gonna overdose. That's just, I just overeat it. I mentioned to y'all the other day, I breathe like I eat fast. By the time I realize that I should have eaten slower, it's too late. I've already eaten. So I've got six. I got two spinach, I got two cheese, I think two pepperoni or three spinach. So hey, look, if anybody's in the area, I mean the immediate area, somewhere in Dallas, and you think you want deep dish pizza, babe, uh, my friend says Lou Malnati's is good. People in Chicago say it's good. It ain't what I wanted, but it's going to be all right. So, all right, one other thing. Okay, you see that? All right, so that's from Thailand. All right, and so what this is this is one of many bracelets that the monks have that they will give you, and they will bless you as they give it to you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And then you have this, and it should, it's as good as any other thing that people, rabbit's foot or whatever, you attribute some positive energy to it. And I give them to people. And, they're not all like this. Some are just a piece of string, right? But they've been blessed by the monks. And then I bless them as I put them on somebody. And my mom passed away with one on her wrist. Both of my deceased Susan friends passed away with them on their wrist, and I've given out many of them to friends at whatever. I'm just saying. So I got this while I was in Tucson. Ajahn Saryut, the monk who used to be my teacher, I mean, perhaps he's always your teacher. He placed this on me when I visited the temple because I went to the temple to pick up bracelets to bring home so I could continue to bless people. Because even though I don't look or act like a Buddhist chaplain, the fact of the matter is I am. And I know that that shakes me up too when I think about it. I'm like, but let me tell you what really shook me up. 11 years ago or so, I became a novice monk in Arizona. And that means I shaved my head, I shaved my eyebrows, I lived in a temple, I wore only saffron robes, etc. Okay, absolutely, Kathy, no problem. so, uh, like everybody who lived in the temple, we were up early, crack of dawn. I think typically we started chanting in the Buddha Hall about 5:30 a.m. Right, and we would chant in Pali, which you just heard me reciting something in Pali, and then we would meditate and then do some more chanting, and then you could go have breakfast, clean the temple, whatever was up. And I'm sitting there one day. I'm just sitting and I'm thinking to myself, as I'm chanting in Pali, I'm sitting there in the meditative position, your legs are crossed, and you got the robes on. I thought I could be a Catholic monk, one of those desert monks or Franciscan monks that's living in a monastery somewhere isolated from civilization. I could be chanting in Latin, but I'm chanting in Pali. I'm wearing robes, much as a monk in any religion wears robes. And I thought, how do you go from being I'm not religious, not even Jewish religious, to I am practicing a 26-year-old fully fundamentalist religious practice willingly? I mean, you be tripping, dude. That's what I told myself. I said, you be tripping, man. So, um, so the whole thing is kind of for me to have landed up as a chaplain because even today, um, while I am a Buddhist chaplain legitimately, and while I have been ordained in the past and I'm not ordained now, fact of the matter is, you all know it. You've seen me. I'm a little volatile. I get it. We had that whole discussion yesterday. Our rage is the same as rage, and I cop to it. But the transition from Ken Goldberg, owner of the gun range, to Ken Goldberg, Buddhist chaplain, is a transition that even when I try to look back and I don't know not understand the transformation, even sometimes even remember the transformation. I mean, it's sort of elusive at an emotional level because it was initially it's subtle, but it was dramatic. I mean, simultaneously, I lost all this money, right? I can't sleep. My appetite sucks. and I don't know what to do about losing all this money and how am I going to raise my daughters without a big bank account, et cetera, et cetera. And so, all I wanted was some peace of mind. All I wanted honestly, was to sleep through the freaking night and not spend the whole day in constant anxiety about will my daughter suffer as a result of my financial losses. And so the meditation, when I discovered it, it helped a little bit. Initially, not much, right? But I did stick with it. Why? I don't know why. But I did. I stuck with it. And eventually, I recognized that uh, while I didn't like losing the money, it was gone. Okay, I didn't like that my daughters were going to be, in my opinion or in my perspective, handicapped by this loss of monies. They wouldn't have a college fund they could rely upon, um, whatever. So while I was visited by those demons, that's what I wanted relief from those demons of darkness that descended in the night, right? So, but I got so much more in the bargain. And so I went down that rabbit hole. I mean, there's a lot of rabbit holes, right? I went down that one and just hiking and talking with the monk on almost daily basis. And you arrive at this point in your life, if you meditate, where you're like, I have a choice. Do I listen to me or do I listen to the truth? Uh, because in my head, the truth rarely takes, uh, how do you say, when a seed takes into root? The truth has a trouble taking root. Not the truth about, how much money do I have or what year is my car, how old am I? Those things. I'm talking about the truth of life, the truth of how I perceive uh, and how I characterize difficulties or pleasantries, how I characterize friendships or the lack of friendships or enemies. And so the more that I sat back and looked, the more I found liberation from the type of suffering I arrived to meditation with. It doesn't mean I don't suffer. It just meant that it took on a different hue. It was more manageable. Um, Even in the darkest of times, it's better than the darkest of times before I learned how to live amongst monks. And I could live amongst monks tomorrow if I wanted to, but I want to ride my bicycle more than I wish to live the life of a monk. If they would let me ride a bicycle and if they would let me hike when I want to, I'd probably go become a monk because when we talk about social skills and relationships and all that, I've demonstrated over 68 years. I really suck at it. I'm good at friendship. I'm not good at romance. I'm not good at intimacy, or at least historically, it would appear that I suck at it, right? So I would land up in a mountaintop monastery tomorrow, but they gotta let me ride my bicycle. I enjoy my bicycle, but they don't let monks ride bicycles for a variety of reasons. You don't need to know why, because none of you are applying to be a monk. So don't worry about what the reasons are. They're just our reasons. So, but there is something I can do, albeit it's not a monastic life. I can downsize. I can forsake the acquisition of everything that I can afford simply because I want it and I can afford it. Okay. I don't have to accumulate in the manner that I used to accumulate. I can take advantage of being present to recognize that the people, places, and things that I often give great value to are so impermanent, and thus their value has a very elusive impermanence. Whether it's the new car, new clothes, new girlfriend, doesn't matter. I can operate without most of it. So when I get into this thing of feeling like I want, uh, excuse me, when I get into this thing of I'm wanting, and oh my God, isn't the internet? I mean, you can window shop 24 hours a day. It used to have to be, I'd have to, if I really wanted to window shop, I'd have to go to the cool parts of town where there were boutiques, reasonable boutiques and, art galleries, the funky art galleries, not the high end ones, and stroll around and pick up some, hip stuff, or go down to the Magnificent Mile and shop at Nordstrom's because I like Nordstrom's. The point is that I could and I did acquire upon demand, mental demand. And I've long since found that most of those demands were pretty much capricious. They weren't going to provide me with what I even thought they would provide me with. Um, or they provided me with it, but the duration of the satisfaction was so short lived that I quickly recognized it hadn't been a worthwhile investment, right? You know, I got the new car to end all cars, and after a while, new car smell was gone, or somebody, something happened to the interior. So it was a rip in the interior. Somebody scraped it in a parking lot or keyed it. And all of a sudden, I was like, I should have just kept my old car. It was paid for and it was already pre-damaged, right? So for me, this ability has served me so well in the time of the pandemic to simply stop, look, listen to this mechanism I've called my mind. Listen to these voices that I always thought were my most intimate friends, and recognize, oh, whoops, not necessarily your friend, not necessarily truth, and not necessarily reality, and certainly not operating to my benefit. In fact, the thing closest to me, these voices, which are always present, I ultimately discovered were actually working to my detriment, not my benefit. So you've all heard me talk about doing a cost benefit analysis of so many things that come up. What is the cost of this thing that I want? What will be the benefit? Will the cost inure to the benefit in a way that I'll be glad? Well, frequently I've done the math in advance and recognized now, yeah, no, just keep going along with what you got. Make it work. I got my daughter's Prius, man. Y'all haven't seen it, man. Oh, I bought it pre-damaged, but it's deteriorated. The paint is just gone, and that's not my daughter's fault. The clear coat must have got damaged, so the paint is just evaporating off it. And it looks like those cars that need a paint job, and it's banged up, and the inside's got spots and stains. Those I can attribute to my daughter. But it functioned, and it gets, I don't know, 37 miles to a gallon. And so she could no longer afford the upkeep because at 83,000 miles, it needed things. And when it needed those things, they were expensive. And Dad was like, I'm not made of money, girl. You need to be able to pay for these things. Well, she didn't want to. So I said, all right, well, I'll fix it, but it's my car. And she said, okay, it's your car. So I've got it. And, it's ugly. It's ugly. But if I'm not in the van, which is relatively new, 2 years old, then I run my errands now in this ugly car. And sometimes I come out to the ugly car and I think to myself, well, uh, I wouldn't go out on a date with it, I don't think. It's just it would make me look like, a pauper. I don't know that I could explain that I'm a guy who can afford better, but I'm practicing humility, right? I don't think I want to have that exploration being going on in somebody else's head when they look at me cut out in or out of my Prius as I meet them for some sort of social intercourse, right? So I still have my pride. I may be, I may have found some humility, but I certainly have not purged myself of pride. So, and I bring this up because I actually thought about it yesterday as I came out of the chop shop with my salad, and I looked at that car and I thought, man, that car is just ugly. It's just ugly. So, in fact, I don't even bother bringing it in the garage. I'd rather protect my bicycles from the elements than that car. So that car's sitting out in the driveway, and the bikes are all inside along with the van. So meditation transition to Buddhism, Buddhism transition to monastic life transition back to the lay life, and ultimately to being a chaplain. And that transition was necessitated by the fact that the monastic community here in Dallas is primarily Thai, and they don't speak or won't speak English, and so they deferred to me, and so I honed my skills from my times living as a monastic, and I began to practice being a chaplain because there was a demand for an Anglo Buddhist chaplain. And I worked at I was a volunteer at the Parkland Memorial Hospital, county owned hospital. I worked there as a volunteer chaplain, and I presented as a Buddhist chaplain. I've gone and made hospital visits numerous times. I've conducted funerals, I've conducted weddings, and, you know, back to my original point, if you know me, that transformation is nothing less than yo. Because I feel that way. I would not poo poo. If somebody went, you're what? Yo, that's hard to believe. Like if you know me a long time, I wouldn't go, well, why is it so hard to believe that? I would be like, yeah, I know, ain't that the truth? I think it's pretty significant. People that meet me later on in life don't always get it, So, and since I don't have uh, the outward appearance of a chaplain necessarily, because I'm not a monastic. And I'm not wearing a collar. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a priest. Um, I'm just a guy who's got some knowledge and some skills. So sometimes when I walk into something where I am supposed to be perceived as a chaplain, there's a certain amount of, excuse me, who are you? It's not unlike when I was a lawyer. Sometimes I didn't have a suit on, but I needed to go to the courthouse and get a signature from a judge or something, So I would go down to the courthouse and I would walk in the courtroom with the intention of approaching the judge and saying, Judge, I've got a hearing I want to schedule with you. Can you get out your calendar and let's, and the bailiffs would always like rush over to stop me because I had a goatee and a mustache, and I wasn't wearing a suit. They just assumed I was a criminal defendant, I think. So just like when I used to drive cross country, I always got stopped by Border Patrol, immigration. They had these throughout the Southwest United States. We have these what they call checkpoints. So it's not that they think you're coming from the border. That's not it. They're just looking to see if they can pick up some miscellaneous illegal aliens. So there's checkpoints. There's one 13 miles west of Las Cruces. There's one 75 miles east of El Paso, and these are both on Interstate 10. And you'll find them throughout the Southwest. In fact, if you go down towards Mexico and you come back up from Mexico, the odds are you will be hard pressed to find a single road where there is not at least a one or two man checkpoint, if not a full checkpoint. And that wasn't the way when I first moved out there. The Republicans somehow managed to harness the whole illegal immigrant thing to law and order. And so now, so I used to always get, when I get to a checkpoint, they'd be waving people through, they look, do you look like somebody? Yeah, no, come on, come on. Because if they stop every single car, the line could get abysmally long, right? I always got stopped. Roll your window down, sir. Are you an American citizen? Yes, I am. The absence of any kind of Spanish accent. Okay, go ahead. Um, in fact, when I was 14 years old and I was working at Harvey Lumber Company in Pilsen, Mexican neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, and I left to go get my hamburger at lunchtime, and immigration stopped me and demanded my papers, and it was cute, but they let me go because again, I didn't have, other than my appearance, I didn't have the indicia of a little Mexican child. And since my hair's turned gray, I don't get messed with by the Border Patrol people anymore. They often wave me through. Sometimes they ask me if I'm an American citizen, but they ask everybody, so means nothing. All right. So it's almost 6:40. I've been talking nonstop for 39 minutes. You all stopped talking 18 minutes ago. Kathy posted the last comment at 18 minutes ago. So I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know if you are even really there or give a shit. And by the way, that's my swear word of the night. As I told you yesterday, profanity pulling it back. Don't need it. I'm good without it. I have, and it can't just be here, mind you. I can't be swearing at lunch or on my bike ride or whatever because it creeps back into my vocabulary. It's kind of like sugar. I either have to not do sugar or do sugar because if I don't do sugar, first off, it takes 2 weeks to get sugar out of my system to the point where I don't Jones for it every day. But if I take a little bit of sugar, just one scoop, yeah, but right now I'm gonna be eating me some ice cream every day afterwards. So if I start letting profanity back into my vocabulary, I fear that it will ooze into this, and then as Joan pointed out, I will be on here trying to dissuade the women who I wish to have social intercourse with from shutting me down because they find my energy is bad energy, profane, vulgar, whatever. All right. Yeah, I knew you were there, Kathy. And that pretty much takes us to the end of this podcast, right? By the way, today is birthday night at my local AA club. Yesterday, somebody um, was talking about anonymity in the context of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's this thing that you were supposed to maintain anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. I'm on the internet, right? And this dude changed the wording to all media. And I thought, he's calling me out, right? They don't want people like me saying I practice 12 steps because if I suddenly start drinking a screwdriver in front of you or smoking some weed or whatever it is, you might think poorly of 12-step recovery rather than just simply thinking poorly of me. Uh, Marcus Welby, what was his name? Robert Young. Uh, he broke the traditions and mentioned to people he was in recovery, he was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then years later, he and his wife went back to drinking wine. And that was, it was like, oh, whoops. I had the pizza you mentioned when I was in Chicago. So you had Lou Malnati's, good stuff. What I'd like to do, Kathy, is I'd like to bake that pizza when somebody would be here to enjoy it with me. And that may have to wait till Ricky comes at the end of May. For those of you who don't know, Ricky's my little brother. Because I'm pretty sure if I bake one of those, it may last 2.5, maybe max 3 days. If you know how many calories in one of those, wow, boom, bang. Not something you want to be chowing down on once or twice a day. And deep dish pizza is not as good cold, but it's good enough cold. So maybe Chris and Becky will eat some Lou Malnati's someday because they're local. I don't know. We'll see. So, anyways, it's time to do metta. Metta, the practice of goodwill, loving kindness, compassion for ourselves, for others, for all beings. And so we always conclude the podcast. And I told you that as a monk, you chant, yeah, Ricky will eat it. I'm absolutely certain of that, right? So so I told you, and I meant it, that I when I chant, sometimes I think to myself, my God, I could be a monk, right? So I'm going to demonstrate on your way out a little bit of the practice, right? Sape sata kama saka kama tayata kama yoni kama pantu kama patisarana. Yang kamang kari santi kaliknam wa papakamwa. Tasa tayata pawisanti sape sata sata hontu. Awira sukati wino. Katam punya pala mahang sape paki pawantute. Hotu sapam sumangkalang. Rakantu sapate wata. Sapa puta nupa wena. Soti hontu nirantarang. Hotu sapam sumangkalang. Rakantu sapate wata. Sapatanu pawena. Soti hontu nirantarang. Hotu sapam sumamalang. Rakantu sapate wata. Sapasangka nupawena. Soti hontu nirantarang. Satu, satu, satu. That chant will stand as the metta because that is the sublime attitudes, which is metta. Now you heard a portion of it in the language of the Buddha, Pali. And I'm trained in reading and chanting in Pali. Okay. Have a good night. Thank you, Joan, Kathy, Mark, I'm telling it, Mark and Ann and Chris, maybe Becky, Rachel. I don't know why Debbie stopped coming, but that's okay. And I said Rachel, Joan. Yeah, it was a small crowd tonight, wasn't it? But doesn't matter. It was a good crowd. You are the people that literally, in a sense, grasped me from the pits of despair and elevated me to a place of grace where I can reside today in this moment until further notice. Namaste.